Over the past couple of weeks, I've noticed something strange happening in the video game industry. Normally, you'll hear in that general time frame just one story of one developer, one studio, one community manager doing something really stupid, going off the wall, etc. Just one. In this same time frame, 2 or 3 weeks, we've had so many that I can't keep track of them. I had to write them down because there were just so many, and I probably missed half of them. In just this last 2 to 3 weeks, we've had the Apex Legends developers lose their shit in an AMA. And among other things, they referred to their free-to-play players as freeloaders. Oh, but don't worry, they were totes joking, guys. 3D Realms censored a game that they published, and they have now changed it so that any studio that wishes to be published by 3D Realms must take a mandatory sensitivity training class. All of this because the developers, Voidpoint, I believe that's their name, said a joke in the game and said some jokes in their Discord that 3D Realms did not like. Yes. You had Take-Two filing over 100 fucking copyright strikes against a single YouTuber to destroy his channel from orbit, basically because he found out some information that several other channels did, but he was the smallest one of the bunch, so Take-Two figured they could kill him. And then you had Ooblets. Need I say more? I was trying to figure out what the fuck is going on because I don't think I've ever seen this many happening all at once. I thought that there was something going on. There was something in the water. There was some sort of just they don't give a shit anymore mentality. And then the heavens parted. The light shone upon me. And as if a message from God himself, this article fell in my lap. Gamergate comes to the classroom. Students used to be blank slates. Now they arrive with agendas. From The Verge. You can already picture where this is going. And I'm not going to read the whole article because we'd be here for an hour, and I don't want to put you people through that. I'm going to read one paragraph and then the last 4 or 5 paragraphs of the article because they kind of emphasize the point that I'm trying to make with this, and you're going to see exactly what that is. And of course, I'm going to have a link to the archive of this in my description because I don't want The Verge taking this down or changing it, which I feel like they're going to do. The one paragraph in the middle of the article that I think is most telling about what's going on right now goes as follows. Ruberg's teaching focuses largely on the intersection of technology and society with an eye on games. Part of the pushback, Ruberg believes, is because game dev students are resistant to the idea that cultural issues should have an impact on what some consider a very technical job. For some of the most problematic kids, however, the root cause is far worse. These students have been radicalized, they say. So, this teacher's issue is that students believe that a job where you're coding should focus primarily on the technical aspect of what is, to most people, a technical job. And because of that, among several other things, they have been radicalized. You're starting to get an understanding of what the fuck is going on with all of these devs, aren't you? You're starting to get an idea of where the issue with the video game industry is coming from, aren't you? Our education system seems to have gone off the wall. These are the people that are teaching the future developers, coders, whatever you want to call them. that are making video games, that will one day be running studios. This is a problem. To further go into this, here are the last few paragraphs of the article itself. The issue is not only with teacher safety, but points to a greater crisis in how the education system must fundamentally rethink how to instruct students. How much of our classroom time do we dedicate to, rather than teaching and learning, but unlearning, Wilcox says. Helping people unlearn the biases and prejudices that they've learned from the internet all the way up to the age of 18 or whenever they enroll in university. I would like to just take a brief aside to once again repeat something that I have unfortunately had to say many times over the last few years. 1984 was not an instruction manual. God fucking damn it. It was a warning. It was a dystopian warning. You were not supposed to use that as a fucking tool, you idiots. Of all people that are using this as an instrument, educators. I can imagine right now that if we hooked up a generator to Wells, he'd be spinning so goddamn much that he could power all of New York. What the hell is wrong with people? But I continue. The conventional model has always been to treat students as a sort of blank slate, using education and information to inform them and teach them from point zero, as you fucking should. The combination of Gamergate hubs like subreddit Kotaku in Action and unchecked alt-right personalities preaching harmful ideologies have changed that. An educator's job is no longer just about teaching, but helping students unlearn false or even harmful information they've picked up from the internet. 1984 wasn't a manual. 1984 was not a manual. Repeat it with me now. 1984 was not a fucking manual. De-radicalization is the common question on educators' minds, but some say steps need to be taken preemptively. It's easier to circumvent poisonous thinking rather than scramble to find an antidote after the fact. The issue is that they have a preconceived way of interpreting information, which then shapes how they interpret that data, says Wilcox. You can't just combat bigotry with stats or hard facts. Oh yes. Yes, you people are going to be using stats or hard facts. 13% of the population, 52% of the jailed population. How do you like that stat? You have to address the larger social and cultural factors that make them an issue in the first place. If we started teaching students the basics of feminism at a very young age, Wilcox says, they would have a far better appreciation for how different perspectives will lead to different outcomes, and how the distribution of power and privilege in society can influence who gets to speak in the first place. Yes, we hate that our students are open-minded and have different ideas than we do. Let's brainwash them with our ideology at an early age. Because that is freedom of information. That is making people more receptive to different ideas rather than closing them off to ours. Yes, that is absolutely what's going on here. Oh, take me now. Even at its worst, the educators The Verge spoke to believe change is possible. These are still young people they're teaching who deserve the chance to learn and grow. I'm going to repeat this for you for emphasis. These are still young people they're teaching who deserve the chance to learn and grow. Remember that here in a minute. Remember that. The behavior and games culture is the sort of microcosm of behavioral and larger culture. Vossen says. Gamers are not inherently sexist. Gamers are not inherently racist. Not if you listen to the gaming media. They sure are if you listen to those people. But much of the issue as an educator comes from the battle with what she calls living in an anti-intellectual time. Yes, you're complaining about anti-intellectual things, as colleges are now disregarding biology and saying that it doesn't exist. Okay. People will say education is brainwashing. You just talked about how you need to brainwash people with feminism. I wonder why. She says, figures like Peterson or Lindsay Shepard will pose human rights discussions as ones with two sides, rather than accepting that all people deserve basic rights. Except that's never been said. Everyone deserves basic human rights. It's just to what degree are we allowed to not speak about something? I believe that that is the biggest issue that these two people have posed. But I digress. To combat this, Vossen will play leftist videos in her classroom from channels like Innuendo Studios. I think that sadly, at the end of the day, we can't actually change anyone's mind. I think that sadly, at the end of the day, we can't actually change anyone's mind. The same fucking paragraph where you said, these are still young people they're teaching who deserve the chance to learn and grow. I love how they contradict themselves in the same fucking paragraph. It makes my life so much easier. Vossen says, but we can present alternative options. Yes, because what presents education more than alternative facts? That doesn't have any sort of negative connotations to it at all. Wilcox says that the overwhelmingly masculine, anti-political, anti-education tone common to some spaces in games already dissuades marginalized groups from entering the profession in the first place. Yes, because you're a patriarchal bigot if you don't see politics in literally everything that exists. If you just want to learn a skill and do a job, rather than thinking about the politics involved in it, why, you're a dirty, dirty racist. It's a vicious cycle in which the same hostile ideologies that make it difficult for other voices to enter the field continue to feed into each other and gatekeep. The lack of self-awareness there is unbelievable. The problem ahead is a fickle one that requires a larger look at bias in culture and, more broadly, society. That culture is kind of already there, regardless of whether someone uses the talking points in my classroom, Wilcox says. So you have a bunch of teachers that already think that their students are racist. And they're trying to brainwash their students to think a certain way. Otherwise, they are horrible people. I can almost guarantee their grades are dependent on them getting brainwashed. I can almost guarantee their degrees are dependent on whether or not they got brainwashed. This explains the current video game industry so fucking well. This explains what the fuck is happening. This explains why game developers have this gigantic disdain for the gaming audience, and why developers are so inclined to be politically correct. I don't know how to describe it other than it is brainwashing. And then they turn it around and make it seem like the other side is against open-mindedness, is against stats and facts, is against education. This is unbelievable. It's not just the right that is against, that thinks that education has become brainwashing. The center and even the moderate left thinks that it's gone a bit cuckoo. I cannot believe that this is the current state of our education. I've talked about this before, but Jesus, to hear these people openly talk about this, to openly admit to these things, to think that they are in the right for demanding that their students be brainwashed into thinking like them and agreeing with their exact ideology. That is disturbing on levels I can't accurately describe because I don't have the vocabulary for it. I strongly suggest reading through the entire article because while my points largely stem from the fact that they seem to be using 1984 as a fucking manual, there's a lot of other bits that they talked about in there that are equally as unsettling. And that they thought that this was a good idea to let be known kind of shows how entrenched they are in their own little bubble and how they don't realize what they are doing is worse than anything they've ever accused the right of doing. I now understand why game developers are shit. And unfortunately, if this continues, I don't know if there's going to be a way to fix this in the foreseeable future. When basically becoming a game developer is dependent on you bowing down and being a complete subject to the ideology of feminism, political correctness, intersectionality, etc. What fucking hope is there to fix the industry if that's the only people that are allowed to get in? Ugh. This is a math machine saying, fuck the education system, because I'm an American and that's what we fucking do. Peace out.